Hey everyone, Coalition Connect. You've probably tuned into this from our newsletter. Just want to thank you so much for being a part of the Coalition ecosystem that continues to enrich and empower Black founders under the RGA Ventures bubble. Big shout out to RGA Ventures as well. And right now I have Howard. He's going to introduce himself. Obviously, Howard Wright, amazing entrepreneur in the space, C360Live. If you've watched any football game, if you watched any sporting event, NHL, etc., you've probably seen some amazing things that his company's done. I don't want to take away too much steam, but I'm going to let him start here.
So appreciate the time, Sterling, really do. Howard Wright, President, CEO, C360. Sorry if it's too loud here, but we just happen to be right here on Park Avenue, trying to close and negotiate deals with some of the most important leagues and some of the most important broadcasters in the world. And I have to say that this has been a very good week so far. We hope to keep the momentum going.
Absolutely. And we're definitely cheering you on. Maybe you could just tell people a little bit more. They'll read this in the newsletter, but maybe you could just tell people a little bit more about C360 and then maybe even talk about how it all started and
Sure.
Kind of a quick brief format there.
Sure. So the company is C360. It is a play on words because what we are is a visual, creative, immersive media engine. And what you've recognized us probably is below the rim in basketball, the pylon cam in football, both college and professional. You've seen us in other high, quality, high visible places. We put these microscopic cameras that have digital pan, tilt, and zoom and create these broadcast enhancements. And then it also creates OTT streams for the leagues and our broadcast partners. That's what we've been doing. I joined in November of last year after having 20 years working with multinationals, 5 years with Intel, 14 plus years with Qualcomm. So Sterling, I grew up kind of in telecommunications, grew up wanting to be a digital engineer, grew up thinking about the configuration of all this integrated circuitry and how do you build something that makes the life simpler for a broadcaster or for a league. And now it's all coming together and we're very excited about it.
That's incredible. And when you think about, often as entrepreneurs, we may hear, hey, stick to software. It has a lighter lift. It doesn't require a lot of investment. You're in NFL pylons, so talk about that road to get there and, kind of, in some ways defying the odds, primarily because hardware is so difficult to get into. So I'm sure there's some entrepreneurs out there that have heard that before. What would you say to that? What are your thoughts?
The advice would be continue to be bold. If you build a Me Too product, nobody is going to accept it. Somebody else has already built it on some part or some corner of the world and shown the folks right here on this island of Manhattan. You have to do something bold. You have to do something extraordinary. Fortune does favor the bold. To that extent, I would say measure your growth and measure your progress in terms of be deliberate, be specific, tell partners what you're going to do, and then deliver on those dates. If you do not deliver on those dates, you have no chance to be authentic. You have no chance to gain any credibility with some of the most important figures in sports and technology in the world. A measured, bold approach. And if you do that, you'll find the funding. If you do that, you'll find the partnerships. That is a path to somewhere. You've seen, or we have seen, certainly either bigger promises that can't be fulfilled or too small of an idea that even when it germinates, it doesn't produce the revolution that the desired goal is.
Yeah, I completely resonate with that, and I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs that are watching this feel that as well, and hopefully they feel encouraged to really blow out that idea that they have, or that concept to pivot to something more bolder. When you think about the partnerships that you've secured, so far, like, what was one step that you felt kind of unlocked it a little bit? I know you've talked about we've talked about teamwork. You mentioned your CTO a lot. I know you're very pro team and enabling others, but outside of building the team, what were some of those external relationships that you built that you felt you were like, man, this actually is going to get us to the next step?
So there's a partner that I won't name because the deal is not announced. How about that, Sterling? But
absolutely.
But the idea is, I have always modeled my business persona after Magic Johnson. He was the facilitator. Every player that got on the court with him was better off than they would have been without him. And he already had Hall of Fame talent to play alongside with him. So those Lakers teams of the 80s were my favorite teams because I grew up in San Diego, for sure. It is about galvanizing the resources. It's about creating the culture and giving the proper enthusiasm to folks up and down on that 12-man roster, or that 12-person roster. That's what we've been trying to do. It is being formalized now with a enormous partner in terms of how quickly we can build a platform for them, and with a league partner. I'm being vague on purpose, not to be cryptic, but to be, not sure when this interview is going to come out, so we better keep it under embargo.
Absolutely.
The idea is to take a company, C360, which has been relatively local, relatively regional in terms of its approach. It's headquartered right there in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Now build a global entity on this world-class technology and defensible IP that we have. That's the transition. And we think that we are minutes, hours, days away from continue to go on that path of maturity.
That's not only energizing for me, but I know it's sparking a lot of thoughts for other entrepreneurs and those listening to this. And me personally, I'm just cheering you guys on, as you know, I've reiterated in this before. One thought I wanted to ask you is, when it comes to just being an entrepreneur, it comes to being in a highly competitive space, are there any, you mentioned Magic Johnson and like others that you've relied on, kind of like their archetype or the way they do things. How have you been able to stomach the ride? I mean, there's entrepreneurs out there that have maybe secured the meeting and it went halfway to the goal, or all those kind of things that happen as an entrepreneur. How have you been able to stomach that, and what would you pass on to entrepreneurs across the ecosystem?
So Sterling, I've probably been the luckiest guy ever. Having spent 20 years in corporate America, I was able to ride second seat or second chair on lots of corner meetings over the years. So my immediate bosses at Qualcomm and Intel include Paul Jacobs, Peggy Johnson, and others. But I also got to see how Ralph De La Vega or Ken Chenault operated when it came time for the meeting. That at that level, they're making billion-dollar decisions inside that aisle.
Right.
I was was lucky enough to be in the same room with Ursula Burns for a talk that she gave about authentic leadership. It was different nuggets of information that I stored up, and I tried to really emulate. I steal every single day from my mentors and folks that I've admired in the corporate world. And it's not just writing a different set of code. It's not having some platitudes in a meeting. It all comes down to some of the most important and impactful folks that I've met are these authentic leaders. They will tell you bad news to your face. They will tell the customer exactly when they can deliver said product, and they won't promise a day before. It is relatively boring, and it's relatively unique now in the world of everybody being hyperbolic and saying that they have a hockey stick that's going to change the world, or a product that's going to change the world. It's about simple blocking and tackling on both internally for the build of the product, and then how you tailor or craft something for individual partners. I'll give you a quick example.
Sure.
Our broadcast partners are different, but they're in the same vertical. Our league partners are different, but they're in the relatively same vertical. I can't sell the same product to the NBA that we're trying to partner with the NHL.
Right.
It has to be, we have to give the tools, the means, the levers to some of their digital engineers and digital scientists so that we can craft with them something really specific, something really personalized for their operations center and their fan base. That was a one size does not fit all approach that I learned, especially working in Qualcomm, when all the modems don't work the same for all the OEMs or all the carriers.
Yeah.
So adaptability, ability to have some ambidexterity in how you approach partners, and then first and foremost, being authentic. When you give a customer your word, that supersedes just the brand that you're representing. That is your then personal and corporate brand, which is synonymous with that. And folks sometimes are just a tiny bit loose with that, and they should not be.
Yeah. Yeah, you're echoing my dad. He said the two things that you can control is being on time, your attitude, and your effort. That's a huge game changer for a lot of people. Well, I know we're at our time. I could turn this into a podcast, man. I know you're helping people drop in knowledge and very actionable next steps for people in every vertical of their entrepreneur phase. Is there anything you want to leave anyone with or share before we close out?
Sure. So year plus after George Floyd and some of the companies that promised Black Lives Matter participation, some did it with a banner, some did it with a check. Let's have a health check, all of us, back on, are these things being implemented? Diversity and inclusion is a 4-letter word for some folks, but I encourage our African-American and minority founders to be unapologetic in their goals right now, because our counterparts are doing the same. It is, no one lowered the standard at Stanford University for me to get in. Nobody lowered the requirements for me to graduate there. Nobody lowered the requirements for me to play in the NBA or join Intel or Qualcomm. I think our group in particular suffers from some identity crisis or imposter syndrome from time to time. And we need to be better agents of fighting off that doubt. Everybody has the doubt. We have the means, we have the IQ, the EQ, and the AQ. I would encourage us to recognize, dealing with our majority counterparts, which is identifying and applauding Black excellence is not attacking the status quo. It is, we are not anti-white, we're not anti-gay, we're not anti-female, we're not anti-Latinx. It's a very specific note to hit. And sometimes we do it well, other times we do not. My last thought, Sterling, is when the doubt creeps in, when the long days of meetings and you can't get to the last email, I would encourage specifically our group to understand that we have the deepest reservoir of sacrifice in this country than any other group that I know. We are here as a byproduct of all the suffering, of all the sweat, of all the tears, of all the enslavement that has happened for us to get here. Now, I can get tired during the day and maybe need a second coffee or a third coffee. But every once in a while, in the quiet moments of my day, I recognize that a great grandfather that I've never met sacrificed in a way to get me to this part.
Yes.
And we are the ones, we're the ancestors of the ones that they couldn't kill.
That's it.
Now,
yeah.
Some days it works. Some days you have to dig even deeper. This is our mission, to normalize this, to democratize excellence in a way, and to do so with allies.
Yes.
Do so with participation from corporate America, from VC dollars, and our partners.
Yes.
This is our best way to actually show all of the races that we deserve this seat at the table. And eventually it gets normalized, and then it's not rare that me or Davion or any of the other Black executives hold the positions that we hold.
That's right.
So the idea is to make this completely unremarkable or rare in the next few years, and we deliver the shareholder value. We do it with some authentic leadership. We
Yes.
control our fate as relates to African American executives in this world right now.
Beautifully said. I could not have said it better myself. Howard Wright, thank you so much for your time. Coalition Connect. Be looking forward to the content series that we'll continue to have called Five4. Howard is our first. I wanted to make sure that we had Howard as our first. I'm so thankful for his time in between meetings in New York City. And next time we're doing coffee, lunch, dinner when you're in New York again.
Look forward to it. Sterling, thanks for the time. Be in touch.
Thank you so much, sir. All right.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.